content warning. We are going to be talking about police violence. If you don't want to experience all of that, then I recommend jumping off. Last weekend, on Sunday, the 23rd, police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, shot a black man, an unarmed black man, 7 times in the back. The Kenosha Police Department said that the officer-involved shooting happened shortly after 5 p.m. on Sunday the 23rd in Kenosha, Wisconsin in the US. Now, it's very important to note the language that the police use. The term officer-involved shooting is what they use, and they use that term specifically to make it sound like they are not involved in, or they didn't do the shooting. So officer-involved shooting makes it sound like there was a shooting and there were police around the area when the shooting happened, but it doesn't imply that the police did the shooting. This is very specific language, or very specifically chosen language. They do this for a reason, to decouple themselves from the crime that they commit. So, the police said that they had been responding to a domestic incident, but gave no details about what led to the shooting. It is so far unclear who called the police and what happened before video recording began. So, video recording of people on their phones came out after the shooting happened that shows the incidents. I can't show the video on stream because it breaks TOS because of the violence on it. But in the video footage that was shared on social media, 3 officers can be seen pointing their weapons at a man identified as Mr. Blake as he walks around a parked SUV. As he opens the door and leans into the car where his 3 sons were, one officer can be seen grabbing his shirt and opening fire. 7 shots can be heard in the video as witnesses shout and scream. That is briefly what happens in the video. I can't show it, but that is briefly what happened. And witnesses told the local news site Kenosha News that Mr. Blake had tried to break up a fight between 2 women, and the police had attempted to use a taser on him prior to the shooting. So this is what happened. These are the facts that we know of what has happened. Now this, of course, sparked protests in Kenosha that have been going on now for 3 nights, I think, and have gotten violent. Police have shown violence. The alt-right have come to these events with guns and I believe shot people as well. So it's gotten bad. It's gotten bad. Out of curiosity, what would you like them to call it? I mean, it makes sense they call it that because an officer was involved, Trevor Jones. Well, yeah, but the officers were the ones who shot. Yes, they should say the officers shot the suspect. Exactly. Yes, or officers, because I don't know how many of them shot the suspect. But that's what it should be called. Officers shot the suspect. The suspect didn't shoot. The only shooting that was done was by the police. They were the only people who did the shooting. No one else. Take out that passive language out of there. That's intentionally meant to make responsibility vague. Exactly. As Rufio said. Officer-involved shooting sounds like the officers could have been the victim. Exactly. Yes. It does make it sound like other people were also shooting on top of the police, which is not the case. Okay, I get your point, but if you call a person a suspect, then it makes them seem guilty of a crime. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, Trevor. It makes them a suspect. It means they are suspected of a crime, but it doesn't mean that they are guilty. So here's an important distinction that we need to make. There are arrests and there are convictions. The police can arrest someone for a suspected crime. That doesn't mean that they will be convicted of the crime, which is where many of the 1350, which is 50% of all violent crimes in the US are done by black men who are 13% of the population or whatever. Like that stat that gets thrown around by racists and right-wingers to be like, well, they have to be policed very hard. That is only, the 50% is arrests, not convictions. So there are a lot of arrests that do not lead to convictions, meaning that they were innocent. So that's a very important distinction that we need to make. I get your point. It's a fair point, and that's kind of a fucked stat. It is a very fucked. The 1350 is a completely fucked stat. It is not. It's only meant as a racist ploy to say like, well, we need to police black people like this because, well, what are you gonna do? They're just like that, and it is a completely bullshit stat. But yeah, now we're gonna get to the absolutely god-awful video of Steven Crowder. Fucking awful video. So but just briefly, if you don't know who Steven Crowder is a right-wing commentator, I guess would be the right term. He has a YouTube show called Louder with Crowder, and he is probably best known for the Change My Mind meme, where there's a guy sitting with a table in public, and it says, and people change like, they put like a statement and then change my mind on like a text, and he has like a cup. That is Steven Crowder, because he does a segment on his YouTube channel where he goes to public and then he makes some claims like there's only two genders or, stuff like that, and then change my mind, and then he gets people to come there and he films it. So that's Steven Crowder. He often lies, often misrepresents points, typical right-wing stuff. Yeah, so let's get to this. This is not the whole segment that they did on this, or the whole podcast, or the video, sorry, because the video is like an hour long, so I'm not going to watch the whole video, but this is basically this 9-minute segment is the part. So I'm going to be pausing a bunch and talking over, etc.
All right, let's go to this right now. Of course, there have been riots in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I want to warn you there will be some...
So, first off, I have to pause already. First off, it is very specifically that they use the term riot, because rioting is how we make protests sound dangerous, illegal, and justify the violence against protesters. That is the reason why they use the term riot and not protest.
Some graphic content today. So again, the question of the day is, when do you think that police are justified in using lethal force? Does the perpetrator have to be aiming a gun at the face? Which I guess doesn't matter, because it happened in Georgia, and people are like, well, he aimed it, but it was dark though, so he probably wouldn't have hit him in the face.
Probably not. Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. I guess let's just send out cops. Let's just put cops against the wall in front of a firing line like.
It's not what people... Oh, this is so stupid. This is so fucking stupid. He's like, you just put cops in front of a wall and shoot them. Durr. Cops are the real victims here. Cops are the real victims. Remember, everyone.
Che Guevara. How about we just do that at this point?
Vuvuzela! Remember what happened to Vuvuzela, brother? Everyone died in Vuvuzela. 10 gorillion people died in Vuvuzela. Do you want Vuvuzela in America? I don't.
Yeah. If you don't want them to defend themselves at all, even when a taser, is aimed at the face. But in this case, we have two situations that occurred over the weekend. I thought for sure when I sent the one over the weekend of the guy with the knife, I thought this isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah. Sure.
Sure enough, protests. It surprises me now. The standard bearer for protests is very, very low.
I don't think the standard of the police murdering a person or mortally wounding a person is a low bar for protests. I think that's fairly well substantiated, that people would get pissed at the police who are there to protect them. That is the job of the police. At least that's what claimed, is to protect people. That they, murder people and mortally wound them. I think that's a fair reason to protest.
Yeah. We literally have
over everything.
Child abusers, sex offenders who've been arrested for assaulting officers.
That doesn't matter. Okay.
Before.
What you did before doesn't matter in these situations. What you have done before, if you have a previous rap or whatever, it doesn't matter. That doesn't justify the police executing you. It doesn't. And besides that, the police don't know that when they're interacting with the person. They don't know that. They don't know of their previous, they don't have fucking AI vision from Terminator. Like, beep, 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 beep. I see this person is a sex offender and killer. I can kill them. It is okay. Like, that is not how this works. Like, it doesn't matter if they've done previous crime, and then like, oh, so if you've done previous crime, that means the police can just shoot you whenever the fuck they want. It's okay, really. It doesn't really matter. They can just go, bap, dead. He did the previous crime. Who cares? And not wanting to wear masks isn't a low bar to protest. Oof, good one. Good one. In general, we need to realize that guilty party is the cops. Guilty party equals cops get to kill someone on sight. Yeah, exactly. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like, the cops can just fucking go guilty, poof, guilty. Poof. Hey, he had a rap sheet. Fuck it. You get to do one crime, and then if you've done one crime and you do a second one, we shout you. Seems fair.
Assaulting officers now, aiming tasers at faces, and they still protest as an unjustified shooting. So, I'm out of touch. That's my white privilege talking, but let's get to the first one here in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Some of these clips will be graphic. This is the reason you've heard the story, unarmed black men shot by police, that they are protesting.
I need to change scenes. I can't show this.
He's walking around from the passenger side. They've asked him to get on the ground. Yep. And they're aiming a gun at him, and he's reaching, and they shoot him when he reaches in his car.
Jesus Christ. That is like mad fucked up. I can't show that.
I don't know why you.
I can't show that on stream, unfortunately. But Jesus fucking Christ, that is like next level fucked up. Like it's like so fucked up. He didn't have a weapon on him. Like, ugh. It's fucked up that people in the U.S. have been conditioned to thinking it's normal that cops can murder people. Yeah, it's really fucked up. Because in Europe, like, that happens way, way less. Way less. Like, even police using guns in Europe is, like, very rare. Like, very, very rare. Depending on the country. At least in the Nordics, from my understanding. Like, using guns is super rare. Super, super rare.
You seem surprised.
I'd be like, yeah.
When police officers have you on the other side of a car, their weapons are drawn, and they're ordering you to do something, that's usually a cue that you have posed a threat.
Well, not
you
only
should
that,
probably not do anything else.
What I would like to is bring up that still.
Yeah, but like, it's like, yeah, okay, the police are pointing, like police were pointing guns at him, and he was like going around his SUV. Like, okay, yeah, he probably should have like stopped or whatever. But he still wasn't posing a threat to them. He was walking around his car. He wasn't posing any threat to anyone. And like that's still no reason to shoot him in the back 7 times as he's going into his car. Like, it's no reason to shoot him 7 times. None.
If we have it, bring up the still here. This wasn't a guy who was just walking away from officers. Look at that tension. That guy is basically horizontal, like the kid. And What About Bob when Richard Dreyfuss is teaching him how to dive?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
That's what he's doing. That's a guy who's actively.
Something.
That's not a guy.
What the fuck is he talking about? What the fuck tension? What the fuck like? Yeah, the police were like grabbing him and pulling him by the shirt. The fuck? What is this, a fucking TV show where you're analyzing the fucking arc of the drama? What the fuck is this point? Who cares? Jesus fucking Christ, these people. Trevor, so do you know why most of the time people are shot multiple times instead of just once? No, I don't. In a little case, it's easier to say that you were scared for your life if you mag dump, it's easier to say you were scared, instead of just once. I'm not saying it's valid or anything, I'm just giving context of why it's normally a high number. Okay. That is actually good to understand, Trevor. Yeah, okay. So they can use the I was scared, I was fearful of my life defense in court easier because shooting a lot of bullets means you were acting impulsively, whereas if you just shoot once, you were calm and collected. That's really sinister and dark. I hate it. Thanks, Trevor, for that, but I hate it. I fucking hate it. Thank goodness he didn't die, Lila, yes. Thank goodness he didn't die in front of his 3 children. So when he was going in the car, his 3 children were in the car, and then the cops fucking unloaded on him. Like, his children saw that happen. Like, that's fucking absolutely awful. Like a traumatizing event for them for life, I'm sure.
I was just getting my registration. Officer, I was trying to put it in neutral because that could be a safety hazard for you.
And then he does the racist minstrel black people voice. He does this quite a lot. He does like racist accents quite a lot.
Sorry, white.
And clearly, there's context because all of the officers already had their guns out before the guy was walking around the car back into his car. So there's definitely more going on.
Back into his car. We have a statement from the governor that Jacob Blake was shot in the back multiple times in broad daylight. Why does that matter?
Come on.
First off,
why does that matter? Why does someone getting shot 7 times in the back versus 1 time in the back? Why does it matter? Because it shows a crazy amount of violence from the police. Like, it's such a flagrant abuse of their power to do this kind of violence. That's why it matters. It fucking matters that they shot him 7 times in the back, not 1 time. There's a huge difference. You know, and the argument he could have had a weapon in the car is bad. It's a possible threat. Imagine. Yeah, I mean, what if he had a nuke in his car? What then? What if he had a nuclear bomb in his car? What then? Like, that is a complete imagined case. That is a complete hypothetical. What if he had the vaccine to cure cancer in his car, and he was going to get it and give it to the police, but now because they shot him, it's gone forever? It's a complete fabricate. It's just such a hypothetical that it doesn't matter. And the fact that people go to that hypothetical to defend it, they know that this action is indefensible. They know that this action is indefensible, and that's why they have to create this hypothetical. Like, oh, well, you know, maybe that was the case. Whew, I don't have to feel bad. No, this is bad, and we should be angry about it. It's a massive lack of training on the PD's part. Yeah, I mean, lack of training is a big problem in the U.S., but it's not just that. That won't solve the problem. I think that isn't a lack of training. It's the fact that the dude was black. Yeah, I mean, that plays into it for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, like, adding more training is not going to solve the issue.
Multiple times doesn't matter. Broad daylight doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Was the guy posing a threat? Was the guy not complying? Could the guy have turned around and shot officers? Doesn't matter if he shot him. I don't care if it...
It's a hypothetical. He didn't have a weapon on him. It's a hypothetical. Pure hypothetical. What if he had a nuke? What if he had a rocket launcher? You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he had a gun in there or not. I could also say, well, maybe he was just checking on his children to make sure they're fine, because there are officers around his car, and he was fearful of his children's life. Because police kill black people in the U.S.
It's dusk, dawn, nautical twilight, civil twilight. It could not be less relevant.
Yeah, it is relevant.
All you need to know is the colors of the people involved. You're reasoning like a child.
Yeah,
exactly, you're not able to sort out the morality, and obviously there's some kind of crazy situation going on. Again,
these are people who have either no understanding or no interest to understand systemic racism within the U.S., because systemic racism in the Justice Department in the U.S., be it the police or the federal courts or the court system, is a huge problem. It's a big, big problem. And these people either willingly or unwillingly do not understand that. And that's why for black people, when they interact with police, it's a very, very different experience than when white people interact with police. Speaking of the US now. It's very different. Black people know that they might die when they interact with police. They know that it can very easily happen, because police can easily escalate the situation when it doesn't need to be escalated, like they did here. They didn't need to shoot him 7 times. But they chose to.
We have to reduce it down to the color of the people involved. The cop was white, the person was black.
Yeah.
I was just reaching in to put the air conditioning on recycle, because otherwise it's not efficient.
And then the government...
This is like Steven Crowder's bit, because I think he tried to be a comedian, and that didn't work out, so he became a right-wing grifter, which understandable character development there. This is basically the minstrel bit. So for those of you who don't know U.S. history, they used to do blackface, which in what were called minstrel shows, where white people would portray black people in very racist manners, using this type of voice, and it was meant to portray black people as less than white people, as animals, as all kinds of nasty things. So he's doing this like, ha ha ha, I am doing a black voice, get it? And it's like, all right, dude, that's really cool that you're making fun of a person who got shot 7 times in the back, but cool.
Governor basically said, here are all the other cases that I know that have been tragic. He tries to lump all these things together. You know what he didn't say? He didn't say one word in support of police officers who felt that their life was in danger and a man was trying to get into his car to grab something. Yeah. He didn't say one word to say, let's wait for the facts. Let's make sure we get everything lined up first. These cops are trying to do their job.
Well, the good thing is we actually do have...
The police were also really scared. Did you know that when the police, 3 of police officers were pointing a gun at a man they had tased, they felt very, very scared. Like, what the fuck is this shit? There were 3 officers with guns pointed at him, and they're like, maybe they were scared, and that's why they brutalized him. Like, come on. Get the fuck over yourselves. Is policing a difficult job? Yes, absolutely it is. Can it be scary and life-threatening situations? Yes, absolutely it can. But to say, they felt scared, so shooting him 7 times in the back is justified, is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Fucking... Thanks, Ben.
Some facts. Let's bring up these facts here from the county.
Let's bring up the facts. Oh, he was also saying, we should wait for the facts while making up shit on their own, like maybe he had a gun in his car, maybe they were scared, like they're making all kinds of conjecture and hypotheticals here, and they're like, we should wait for the facts, all while they are not waiting for the facts. Super cool.
Actually, in question is #1 trend on Twitter right now. What you won't see is he had a warrant out for his arrest. He was a sex offender and had already assaulted officers and resisted arrest after pulling a gun in a bar in 2015.
So this is a very, very typical tactic used by conservatives and right-wing pundits and anyone who's trying to defend the police. So what they'll try to do is smear the victim, saying, well, they did this with George Floyd as well. Like, well, he was actually high on, methamphetamines, or I forget what he was high on. Like, did you know he actually went to jail before? And they try to make it as though this justifies the shooting because they were a criminal, so, we can execute criminals, right? Criminals are people, right? They don't deserve the same rights as other people who are nice people, right? And that's absolutely wrong. What you did in the past here doesn't matter because the police didn't know that. When the police came up to him, they didn't know that. Also, they didn't run his... Okay, I think the plate running, what they're talking about is later. But, even if you're like, well, maybe they ran his plates. No, they didn't run his plates. Because they didn't get called for a traffic issue. They got called for a domestic violence issue. And even if they did run the plates, they wouldn't have gotten that information because that information is not included when you... Plates. Run the plates.
My guess is that probably came up if they ran his plates or they had him pulled aside because
and
that
it wouldn't.
Right away would show up when you run someone's registration, right? When you run their plates, you would see, this is a serial time offender. Oh, wait a second. He's a sex offender. He's assaulted police officers when the officers were already responding because he brandished a gun and now he's reaching into the car.
But they didn't shoot him for the priors. They shot him because he was reaching into the car.
Well, they shot him because he was reaching into the car, but you do have to take into account someone's criminal violent history with firearms. At that point.
Again, his history doesn't matter. It does not matter. It really doesn't matter. If he was sentenced for a crime and he served sentence, and that's it. It's fucking it, man. The car's in his name. It is. Do you mean like if they ran the plates, they would see his prior convictions? My understanding is that it is only limited to certain convictions when you run plates. I heard this somewhere, but I would have to read up on that. Even if they did, let's assume that they ran his plates and they see his criminal record, that still wouldn't justify what happened. It still does not justify that. It still does not give the police right to be judge, jury, and executioner. Still doesn't.
If they knew that, absolutely true, right? But just like you said, Wade, he's doing something worthy of getting shot. Yeah. The officers, and by the way, when your friends are telling you the same thing the officers are, like stop, no, like that you could hear in the background of the video, take a hint. I think maybe everybody's for you stopping walking right now.
I think if you listen closely, you can hear someone go, "Here we go again!"
Right? Keep walking. You can do it.
He's pulling that shit again.
Right?
Him being, tactful once again. So if the car is in his name, it brings up anything that isn't expunged. It's a brief overview, and I agree, but just giving context. But yeah, for sure. I am not angry at you, Trevor. I am angry at this video. I am angry at Steven Crowder and his fucking idiot idiot friends who run this god-awful show talking this shit. Because he's very popular on YouTube, unfortunately. He sucks. And he is part of the alt-right pipeline. Like, he's at the very beginning parts of that. Like, not the very beginning, but he's like the early parts of the alt-right pipeline. And then you go deeper. And then you become an alt-righter. Maybe even a Nazi.
Really? Like, honestly, this is not a new thing for this guy. Now, is it sad? Of course it's sad when someone loses their life, especially in front of their children. It's more sad for those children that man made horrible decisions, including putting the officers in a situation where they believe their life was in jeopardy. But you know what?
So this is a very typical tactic as well. It's actually his fault because he put the officers in a position where they had to shoot him, and he made a terrible choice that will traumatize his children. Not the police who actually, did the deed of trying to execute him and failing at the process. No, it's not their fault. No. It's his fault because he made them feel bad. Just serve and protect, brother. And by serve and protect, I mean serve and protect me. If I feel bad, I'm going to shoot you. This is the same defense that rape apologists use. Well, what were you wearing? Well, what did you say? Well, how did you respond to him? Well, you should have taken this into account. Well, how did that make him feel? These are the very same types of arguments that we hear from rape apologists. Absolute same thing. So I used to like Steven Crowder when he first started the whole change my mind, but it's gotten to the point where he just does the exact same thing he accused the left of doing. Oh yeah. Steven Crowder is a tremendously huge grifter. He grifts. Then he sells this shit, like he has this coffee here that he's selling. Then he has like the Mug Club, which is like a subscription thing and you get a mug or something. Oh yeah, like he grifts hard. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't really believe in the stuff he says. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I forget who it was. Was it Lauren Southern? Or it was someone in like the alt-right sphere of YouTube. And I think it was Lauren Southern or someone from the alt-right part of YouTube is saying like, wow, I met a lot of these people and they actually don't really believe in what they're saying and they're just grifting, which is like, who would have thought? Who would have fucking thought? Yeah, serve and protect 7 times in the back, exactly, Ben. That's 7 freedom bullets, brother. It is depressing, I believe. I agree. I mean, and these people make me mad. Yes. They should make you mad. And we should absolutely not stand for this. It would justify for being on guard and maybe having protective gear, maybe, but still doesn't justify attempted murder for moving around when asked to stop. Absolutely, yeah. No. And I mean, they always have their sidearm. This is the US. They always have a sidearm on them. Always. Like, whatever the situation, the police have their gun on them. All the time. Like, you should be grateful that the handsome heroes wasted 7 bullets on you. Yeah, exactly.
This story is not nearly as sad as a story that would read officers don't go home to their children.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's not sad. I know that people will say, oh, it's not that one life matters more than the other. It's that
that's exactly what he's saying.
Decisions and taken actions that lead you closer to forfeiting your right to live. The closer you get to the line of forcing somebody else to protect their life, whether you mean to take it from them or not, you are no longer in the right.
Yeah.
Okay, so he is saying that one life is more important than the other, even though he claims he's not saying that. He is. He's saying police are more important than victims. In this case, because this dude was a, known criminal. So he is less valuable than the police, because he's saying, like, what if the police hadn't gone home to their children? Think about that. That would have been worse. Why is it worse? Why is it worse? It's because he loves guzzling boots. He loves taking a fat boot, sticking it right down his fucking throat, going. That's why. He thinks police are more valuable than these criminals that he seems them as. Again, Steven Crowder here is deep-throating boots 24/7. And forfeiting your right to live? That's not a thing, first of all. Like, it's not like you can just say, well, I'm gonna forfeit my right to live. Shoot me, police officer. Like, that's not a thing. He made that shit up. That's not a thing. Like, it's not a right that someone can take away from you. That's not how this works. The state can't be like, well, your right to live, gone. Get fucking shot by the police. That's not how this works. That's not what this is. That's not how this works. That is a fucking sick thing to say in this situation. Absolutely sick. If he was reaching in his car and the cop was, 25 feet away, it would be more understandable, but they were right on his ass. All they had to do was grab him and pull him back. Exactly. Even if they were far, I would say it was not justified. But they were right on him. There was 3 cops right on him, and they didn't pull him away. They didn't tackle him. They didn't push him on the ground. They shot 7 bullets point blank. Like grabbing a shirt and then bam, 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 bam. Like point blank. And like that's what happened. It's sociopathic to say that a right to live can be taken away. Absolutely. It's fucking unhinged. This is absolutely unhinged what the fuck Steven Crowder is saying. This is so unhinged that the police have the right to take away your right to live. And it's your fault if that happens because you pushed them to that. And they have no responsibility in this, of course.
There is a scale there, and you have to go, all right, hold on a second. Sex offender? Okay, you have a history of violence? Okay.
It doesn't matter. Okay, his history with crime does not matter, and it doesn't make his life as a human being less valuable than the life of a police officer. That's not how this works. We don't value someone's lives like this. Like, who is more valuable? We don't do that. That's not how this works. That is not how this works. No, this is not how this works. Oh, by the way, what if the police officer has done crimes? What then? Maybe the police officer has done some crimes in the past, but didn't get convicted for them. Does that make the police officer less valuable? No. How do we know objectively who is more valuable? How do we measure that objectively? How do you measure the value objectively? Because if you want to start measuring the value of life, you need to give me a fucking formula on how to do it. It has to be exact and objective. And that doesn't exist. And Steven Crowder cannot give that because he doesn't know what the fuck that is. He's just saying that because he's like, I want to feel better about this killing. And he's grifting, of course. No, Trevor, that doesn't mean that they forfeited their right to live. No. If they come into your house, break into your house and threatens you, that doesn't mean they forfeited their right to live. It means that you have a right to protect yourself. That's a very different thing. That can lead to very violent situations. Yes, but that doesn't mean they forfeited their right to live. No, that's not how this works. You have a right to protect yourself. That's the difference.
Reaching into a car? Okay, they can't even... What are they supposed to do at this point?
They're supposed to grab him before he goes to the car and tackle him on the ground. De-escalate. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to de-escalate. There's 3 of them with guns. He's talking about like, oh, it's an inevitability. What could have we done about it?
Supposed to wait until you turn around and shoot one of the officers dead and then pull their guns maybe to defend their life?
I tell you what, I don't think so. I know what the protesters in Kenosha are supposed to do. Also, I don't know if it made it all the way up to Sheboygan. Very big in Sheboygan, the rioting.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Sheboygan, the rioting, the looting, very big.
All over the place.
Yeah.
So you twist up that along with the
This is also a very common thing that they say the people protesting are just rioting and looting. Does looting happen? Yeah, it does happen. Yeah, it does. But that's not the point of the protests. Every protest is going to have opportunists and provocateurs who will try to take, advantage of the situation, for sure. And small businesses, like if you're protesting and you want your voice to be heard through property damage, do not damage the small businesses in your community. That's just going to hurt you. But going ham on a Target, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, no one cares. Target has insurance. Their insurance covers that shit. Like, that doesn't hurt anyone really. And there was a really good video where a black activist was speaking. This was like when the George Floyd protest started, where she was saying like about the area where the protests were happening, and there was property damage done by the protesters. And she was saying like, we don't own anything. Like all these buildings, all these businesses, we don't own them. We don't own anything. Black people tried to build their own prosperity in Black Wall Street. And you know what the US government did when black people tried to build their own prosperity? They dropped firebombs on them from World War II planes. They dropped fire and mortar on them and shot them. They murdered them. They destroyed their businesses. When black people have tried to build their own prosperity, the government comes in and destroys it. White people come in and destroy it. And now it's just big corporations and they don't own any of it. So why the fuck does it matter if those buildings get burned? It doesn't fucking matter. It's the only way that their voices will get heard. Trevor, they need 100% more training. Absolutely, yes. I have a family that are cops and they don't get enough training. The best cops I've met and gotten training with were ex-military, where they have gotten way more training. They're better able to de-escalate situations and use non-lethal force. Absolutely, I totally agree that police in the U.S. need more training, yes. But also the whole institution needs to be dismantled and rebuilt, because police right now do not serve people, they serve capital. That's the problem.
Twist and Yamaguchi.
The polka riot.
And rioting and burning. This is what they did, of course.
I need to oopsie poopsie. We're gonna switch because I don't know if there's violencia here. I think it's just noisy.
They knocked an officer unconscious with a brick.
Could have killed him easily.
What happened? Oh, he just got brick. He just got brick. Yeah, he got brick.
They're clapping.
They're clapping.
I haven't seen this video before, but it's quite hard to tell anything from that video. I don't know this video very well.
Yeah.
And there's a police car on fire, which is like
the
whatever.
church, the fire's kissing it, and in Minneapolis when we were there.
Now, are we supposed to say, oh well, why did you shoot him? He only had a brick.
Right. Exactly. That's not a deadly weapon.
That's not a deadly weapon. A brick, a knife, a blackjack, and a taser. I mean, what point do they have to have a gun for an officer to use his?
I don't know what this situation was where the police officer got hit by a brick. I don't know what led to that. We're not shown what led to this situation. We don't have context. So it's hard to say what happened there. But he's trying to basically say, you know, if there is any slight modicum of threat, the police should be allowed to shoot them. To justify what it was discussed before, you know. He was reaching into his car. This again goes to the whole point of police need to be de-escalating. Police are always the escalating force in these types of situations. If you look at protests and why they get out of control and why they get violent, most of the time, the escalating factor are the police. Not the protesters, but the police. Because the police have all the equipment and gear to de-escalate, but instead they choose to escalate situations. I think protest riots should happen. They need to burn government buildings, protest outside of the government home. Back in the days, they would tar and feather government officials who weren't doing their duty. Yes, I think protesting is very, very, very important, because in our capitalist structured society, it is the only way for the proletariat to get their voices heard. I mean, in the US, in certain cities, the protests never stopped since the George Floyd murder. There have been protests going on like ever since that in some places. It hasn't stopped. And in the places where it did stop, what happened is they listened to the protesters and they did what they were asked to do. And that's how you de-escalate these situations. You listen to the protesters and you capitulate to their demands. In places where they brought in federal troops, it got even worse. Because that is escalating. When you bring in more force, you escalate.
his gun, and we'll get to that in a second because the next guy who we're about to talk about actually did have a knife. And that guy said brick like it was a verb that he was used to. Like, yo, you just got bricked. Like, it's like,
yeah.
Brick.
It's the usual thing.
Like,
brick, like, it is a verb. I mean, usually you would use it for like a phone or electrical appliance, but I don't think that necessarily means like, oh, he does it all the time. He's used to throwing bricks at people because he used this verb.
Like it's an MTV
it's become
show.
a thing, yeah.
Right next to Bully Beatdown.
Only in 2020 right now.
Getting bricked. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Well, one thing about this guy, he is in serious condition. He didn't die from the shooting, going back to
I'd read that he had died.
Okay, so
No, he didn't die. So to clarify, the guy who got shot 7 times in the back did not die. He's paralyzed from the waist down. And yeah, we don't know if it's permanent paralysis or temporary, but yeah, he's paralyzed from the waist down.
the last report that I heard, unless something came out very early this morning, he was in serious condition in the hospital, was not dead. But that could have changed.
Yeah, I mean, they
What
got
do you know? You're too
ambulance
busy
out there.
fathering.
I was reading as well.
Okay.
But they
And
got
watching
the ambulance
CNN.
out there pretty quick, and they marked it off, put him in the ambulance, took him to the hospital. So
They care
only
flighted him,
did it
actually.
because he reached into a car and actively looked like he was reaching for something. Like,
Yeah.
don't do stupid stuff.
And I don't know what was he reaching for.
Doing stupid stuff does not give the police the right to execute you or try to execute you.
Honestly,
It
what
doesn't
could he
matter. It
possibly
doesn't
have been
matter.
doing? It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
but it does. What could he? There is, in other words, you are trying to rationalize decisions, right? As a police officer, and you're taught to
Right.
do that to de-escalate. You're taught maybe someone is doing this, where you're supposed to give the benefit of the doubt
Yeah.
versus where you have to take control of protecting your own life, right? At that point,
And
how you
other
watch the back
officers.
of other officers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot think of a scenario where a guy is resisting. You're pulling at his tank top and reaching. That's not a guy who's reaching in for his insurance. That's not a
No,
guy who's reaching in for a
not at
temporary
all.
license. That's not a guy who's reaching in to take it out of neutral. That is a guy with a purpose who is lunging into a car. And even maybe he was, like George Floyd, he was on drugs and out of his mind that could lead.
These are all hypotheticals. These don't matter. What if he had a nuclear bomb in his car? What if he had a nuclear bomb? This is complete hypothetical. We don't know why he reached into the car. We don't know. The police don't know. None of us know. Like, he is indeed trying to rationalize what the police are doing here by coming up with hypotheticals here. Maybe he was on drugs. Well, maybe he reached for his gun. Well, maybe he was actually involved in the JFK assassination and he invented the magic bullet, which he used to kill JFK. Legit, all this could be solved with better training. Unfortunately, no, that is not the case, Trevor. We have seen time and time again how police treat black people in the criminal system in the US, and better training is not the way this gets solved, unfortunately. That is not borne out in the US. But that's how they are fixing racism in the medical field, better education. Better education is a part of it, yes. It's not the only solution. It doesn't hurt. Absolutely, Bravo. You're right. Better education. I'm not saying we shouldn't have better training and better education. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not the silver bullet. It's not the silver bullet. In the case of policing and medical care are very different things. Comparing them is not very constructive. So policing, the problem with policing is the institution and the core of policing. That is the problem. How the system is built is the problem with policing. And that's why it needs to be dismantled and rebuilt. Racism comes from ignorance. I'm not gonna lie, I used to be pretty biased, especially against Mexican people, but once I started working in chemical plants, I began interacting with more and more people from Mexico. I realized all my stereotypes were completely off. So here we have to make a distinction. There's individual acts of racism, and then there's systemic racism. So what you're talking about is an individual act of racism or individuals' perceptions. And those you can, educating, getting more involved with people, those can be changed for sure. But then systemic problems, systemic racism, that doesn't get fixed easily by this type of stuff. People are just nicer to black people. Like, that doesn't fix our systemic issues that black people, for example, face. For example, black people, due to redlining laws or redlining practices in the past, could not could not get loans for housing, so they have to live in poorer neighborhoods, and they still are there because generationally it's hard to move out of these areas because you're in poverty. And these areas, their education system funding is tied to property tax, and because these are low-income areas, their education systems get poorer funding than rich areas. You see, these types of problems are the ones that do not get solved by individual acts. Or, for example, the fact that juries will often exclude black people from court cases because the lawyers know that if they have less black people in there, then people will not understand black people's problems and they can get convicted, that kind of stuff, you know?
Do a cardiac arrest, we have absolutely no idea. But if you are an officer, at that point, can anyone think of a scenario where you go, oh, this is totally normal behavior. I'm not in danger at all. I can't. No, absolutely. And if you can't use force here in any way, like, you just can't use force at all. We've talked about this a number of times.
That's not what we're saying. We're not saying no force should ever be used. What we're saying in this case is that the proportion of force used against this one person was astronomically out of proportion. It was so out, so fucking whack to get shot 7 times in the back point blank. That's not reasonable in the given situation in any sort of way. They could have de-escalated in multitude of different ways, and they chose not to.
But every time that you do something like this, like you ruin an officer's life who didn't do anything wrong, the governor doesn't come out and support you, what does he...
Oh, boo, the poor officer's white life is ruined. The poor little officer, because he shot someone 7 times in the back, now his white life is ruined. What about the fucking guy who got shot in the back? He's paralyzed from the waist down, you fucking dipshit. He's paralyzed from the waist down. Maybe forever, we don't know. He almost died. His children had to watch their father get shot 7 times by the police. And then an ambulance take him away. What about them? The poor officer. He felt bad.
What does that do again to the morale of officers? What does it do the next time that they pull? If they hesitate, the next time they could die. That's the line they walk. They don't
die,
walk
their partners
I
can
get
die,
to do whatever I want because
die.
the police can't do anything to me. I'm just going to do whatever I want.
That's the rule now,
right?
is being shot while black and not wanting to be arrested.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it is.
That's the line.
It's because I didn't want to get arrested.
I didn't want to get arrested.
No.
Well,
so they have
matter.
to put their life on the line because...
Oh yeah, because that's what's going to happen. Police officers are just going to stop doing this because, you know, they always did. You know, police officers rarely get to face any consequences for these types of actions, and now they finally are. So they should be hesitant, and they should really consider when they use guns.
You don't want to get arrested. And this is another scenario where there's a warrant out for his arrest. That's one commonality that you see here, right?
It doesn't matter what he did in the past. It doesn't matter if there's a warrant out for his arrest. You still cannot execute him.
I think that people always, that's why I said before Georgia was Rayshard Brooks. Some of them all kind of bleed together. I said, I bet you that this guy had a rap sheet. We said it on air. I said, I don't have any evidence right now. I bet you there's a rap sheet there that he was going to go away for a long time because that's where you see scenarios that people violently resist officers. And by the way, it happens all.
So resisting arrest, let's talk about that for a sec. Again, the past things don't matter. It doesn't matter. Does not matter. When you are arrested by the police, you are put into a physical position that is uncomfortable and painful. It is not a nice experience. It is not comfortable. It is humiliating. Any person's natural reaction is to resist that because it's painful. We want to get out of a painful situation. So everyone in theory will resist arrest. They're saying like, oh, just don't resist arrest, forehead. It's like, no, you fucking idiot. It hurts. It's a very uncomfortable thing. Of course they're going to try to get out of it. Fucking idiots. There's so much I want to say, but can't type it all. Yeah, for sure. I agree. And the school system and housing, a statement, but the jury thing, it is on both lawyers to pick out jurors, and a massive issue is that they have so many shit lawyers that are free to the public. Why would a good lawyer want to be a public defendant for 70, 80K a year when they could go, yeah, exactly, absolutely. Oh, I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely, the system is totally fucked. Absolutely agree with you. But I mean, what I mean by that is I misspoke there. I didn't mean public defenders. I actually meant actual lawyers who are defending, the prosecutors. Sorry, prosecutors. That's what I mean. So there is video material of them being taught, like, hey, if you have a black person you're prosecuting, you should try to get rid of black people from your jury, but like don't make it too obvious, but try to diminish it because white people don't understand black people's problems, so you'll have an easier time to convict them. You know, that type of thing. And 100% they should be held to a higher standard than average. Yeah, police should be held to a higher standard because they are in a tremendous position of power.
The time. If someone has a rap sheet, they do not want to go back to the clink. They're not going to willingly get into the back of the paddy wagon. That's where all of a sudden claustrophobia appears.
Right. Yeah.
And
obviously, if you've been to jail and you get put into the back of a car, of course you panic because you don't want to go back to jail. It's not like, oh, no, I'm claustrophobic. No, you're panicking because you have to go back to jail, and you know how horrible of an experience, especially in the U.S., the fucking jail system there, prison system there is terrible. Of course you're going to be panicked.
It happens all the time. That's when people are at the most dangerous because they have nothing to lose. They're desperate.
Right. They do have stuff to lose. It's not true. Anyway, it's not the whole thing, but that's basically the gist of it. That is Steven Crowder pushing these fucking awful things. I sincerely do not like him. Like, he sucks big time. Cap it off. It doesn't matter what he did in the past. That doesn't give the police the right to execute him or try to execute him. Should he have complied? Yes, he should have. He should have calmed the fuck down. However, the police should have de-escalated. That is their job, to de-escalate, not to just fucking kill people. And people protesting is absolutely understandable under these circumstances. This is not the first time this has happened in the U.S. It's not going to be the last time. The police routinely treat black people poorly, kill them, and brutalize them. It is understandable that black people do not want to interact with police and are scared of police because they have learned that through their lived experience that police treat black people badly and kill them. Fuck Steven Crowder. Hello there. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, or you can come visit my stream on Twitch. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m. Central European Time, and I can answer any questions there. We play games there, go through the news, and talk about some leftist politics as well. See you in the next video. Bye!